The wrestling world has been turned completely upside down, and what we just witnessed might be the most shocking revelation in recent WWE history. If you thought you knew everything about the brutal attack on Jacob Fatu, you were dead wrong. Aldis and Roman Reigns have just pulled back the curtain on something that nobody saw coming, and the identity of the attacker has left the entire WWE universe in absolute disbelief. Before we dive into this explosive story, make sure you hit that subscribe button because you do not want to miss any of the incredible updates coming your way. The chaos began weeks ago when Jacob Fatu, one of the most dominant forces in professional wrestling, was found laid out backstage in a scene that looked like a war zone. Medical personnel rushed to the scene as cameras captured the aftermath of what appeared to be a calculated and vicious assault. Fatu, known for his incredible resilience and physical prowess, was barely conscious, and the severity of the attack sent shockwaves through the locker room. Everyone wanted answers, but nobody could have predicted where this investigation would lead. Aldis, the general manager who has been dealing with one crisis after another, immediately launched an internal investigation. The attack happened in a secured area of the arena, which meant that whoever was responsible had inside access and knew exactly where Fatu would be. Security footage was reviewed frame by frame, and every superstar who was in the building that night became a potential suspect. The tension backstage reached a boiling point as accusations flew and trust between wrestlers began to crumble. Roman Reigns, who has complex history with the Fatu family, initially seemed like someone who might have insight into who would want to target Jacob. The tribal chief has always maintained his position at the top of the WWE hierarchy, and his connection to the Anoa'i family meant he couldn't ignore what happened to Fatu. Reigns made it clear that despite any differences or family dynamics, an attack of this nature crossed a line that demanded justice. His involvement in seeking the truth added another layer of intensity to an already explosive situation. The list of potential suspects seemed endless at first. Jacob Fatu had made enemies during his time in WWE, and his aggressive in-ring style and dominant performances had put targets on the backs of several superstars. Rival factions, jealous competitors, and even those who felt threatened by his rapid rise to prominence all had potential motives. The investigation considered everyone from main event players to mid-card wrestlers who might have seen Fatu as an obstacle to their own advancement. Even members of Fatu's own faction came under scrutiny as investigators left no stone unturned. As days turned into weeks, the mystery only deepened. Witnesses came forward with conflicting accounts, some claiming they saw suspicious activity near the location of the attack, while others provided alibis that seemed airtight. The WWE Universe became amateur detectives, analyzing every segment, every backstage interaction, and every social media post for clues. Online forums exploded with theories ranging from the plausible to the completely outlandish. Some fans were convinced it was an inside job orchestrated by someone close to Fatu, while others believed it was the work of a returning legend looking to make an impact. Aldis worked around the clock, interviewing superstars, reviewing footage from multiple angles, and coordinating with security teams to piece together the timeline of events. His reputation as a fair but firm authority figure was put to the test as he navigated the political minefield of WWE's backstage environment. Every decision he made was scrutinized, and the pressure to solve the case mounted with each passing show. The longer the attacker remained unidentified, the more dangerous the situation became for everyone in the locker room. Roman Reigns conducted his own parallel investigation, utilizing his connections and influence within the company. The tribal chief called meetings with key members of the bloodline and other family members, trying to gather information that might have been missed by official channels. His approach was more direct and intimidating, and several superstars found themselves face to face with an angry Roman Reigns demanding answers. The dual investigations created an interesting dynamic, with Aldis representing official authority and Reigns representing family justice. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A production crew member who had been working on equipment in a nearby hallway came forward with information that had been overlooked during the initial investigation. This individual had noticed something unusual in the moments leading up to the attack, a detail so subtle that it had been dismissed as insignificant during the first round of interviews. When this information was cross-referenced with security footage and witness statements, a pattern began to emerge that pointed investigators in a shocking new direction. The evidence started to paint a picture that nobody wanted to see. Financial records were subpoenaed, travel logs were examined, and personal communications were analyzed. What emerged was a conspiracy that went far deeper than a simple backstage assault. The attack on Jacob Fatu wasn't a crime of passion or a spontaneous act of violence. It was premeditated, carefully planned, and executed with precision that suggested professional involvement. The realization that this was a calculated hit rather than a random attack changed the entire nature of the investigation. Aldis and Roman Reigns found themselves working together in an uneasy alliance, both driven by the need to expose the truth. Their joint press conference was tense, with both men standing at the podium looking grim and determined. Aldis spoke first, outlining the investigation process and thanking those who had cooperated with authorities. Then Roman Reigns stepped forward, and the intensity in his eyes told everyone watching that what was about to be revealed would change everything. The arena fell silent as he prepared to unmask the identity of Jacob Fatu's attacker. The revelation hit like a thunderbolt. The attacker was someone who had been hiding in plain sight, someone whose motives were so deeply buried that even those closest to the situation had missed the signs. It wasn't a rival from another faction or a jealous competitor looking to eliminate the competition. The person responsible for the brutal assault on Jacob Fatu was someone who had personal reasons, someone whose connection to the victim made the betrayal even more devastating. The unmasking sent gasps through the crowd and created an immediate firestorm on social media. The identity of the attacker revealed a web of resentment, jealousy, and long-simmering tensions that had been building for months. This person had watched Jacob Fatu's star rise while feeling increasingly marginalized and overlooked. Every championship opportunity that Fatu received, every main event spot he occupied, and every accolade he earned had driven the attacker further into darkness. The investigation uncovered journal entries, deleted text messages, and recorded conversations that laid bare the psychological deterioration that led to the assault. What made the revelation even more shocking was the elaborate cover-up that had been orchestrated. The attacker hadn't acted alone. There was a support network of individuals who had helped plan the assault, create alibis, and misdirect the investigation. Some of these accomplices were motivated by their own grievances against Fatu, while others had been manipulated or coerced into participating. The scope of the conspiracy reached into multiple areas of the WWE operation, implicating people in positions that nobody would have suspected. The confrontation that followed the unmasking was intense and emotional. Jacob Fatu, who had been recovering from his injuries and watching the investigation unfold, finally came face to face with his attacker. The raw emotion in that moment was impossible to ignore. Questions that had haunted Fatu since the attack finally had answers, but those answers brought new pain as he realized the depth of betrayal he had experienced. The person who had put him in the hospital was someone he had trusted, someone he had considered an ally in the brutal world of professional wrestling. Roman Reigns' reaction to the revelation was a mixture of anger and disappointment. As someone who understands the importance of loyalty and family bonds, the betrayal hit him on a personal level. His statement following the unmasking made it clear that there would be consequences, not just from WWE management but from the bloodline itself. The message was unmistakable: actions like this would not be tolerated, and justice would be served both inside and outside the ring. The tribal chief promised that the attacker would face him eventually, and everyone knew that confrontation would be career-defining. Nick Aldis, speaking in his capacity as general manager, announced immediate disciplinary actions. The attacker was suspended indefinitely pending further review, and everyone who had participated in the cover-up would face consequences appropriate to their level of involvement. Aldis emphasized that WWE would not tolerate this kind of behavior and that the safety of all superstars was paramount. He also announced enhanced security measures and new protocols to prevent similar incidents in the future. The unmasking had exposed serious vulnerabilities in WWE's backstage environment, and changes were necessary. The WWE Universe response to the revelation was explosive and divided. Some fans had suspected this particular individual all along, pointing to subtle clues in previous weeks that now seemed obvious in hindsight. Others were completely blindsided, unable to reconcile the person they thought they knew with someone capable of such violence. Social media platforms crashed under the weight of millions of fans simultaneously reacting to the news. Trending topics dominated global conversations as wrestling fans debated the implications of the unmasking and what it meant for future storylines. The fallout from the revelation extended beyond just the immediate parties involved. Factions within WWE had to reassess their alliances and loyalties. Superstars who had associated with the attacker found themselves under scrutiny, forced to publicly distance themselves or defend their past relationships. The locker room dynamics shifted dramatically as wrestlers chose sides in the aftermath. Some called for maximum punishment while others urged understanding and a focus on the underlying issues that had led to the attack. The division created new rivalries and unexpected alliances. The attacker's public statement following the unmasking attempted to provide context and explanation, but it largely fell flat with both fans and fellow wrestlers. The attempt to justify the assault by citing professional frustrations and personal slights was met with near-universal condemnation. While some acknowledged that the attacker had legitimate grievances about booking decisions and missed opportunities, nobody accepted that as justification for physical violence outside the sanctioned environment of a wrestling match. The statement seemed to make the situation worse rather than better. Legal ramifications began to emerge as Jacob Fatu and his representatives explored options beyond WWE's internal discipline. The assault had caused significant physical injuries that required extensive medical treatment and time away from performing. Lost income, medical expenses, and the emotional trauma of the attack and subsequent betrayal all became factors in potential civil litigation. Lawyers issued statements indicating that all options were being considered, and the attacker could face consequences that would extend long after any WWE suspension ended. The psychological impact on Jacob Fatu became a focal point of the ongoing story. Beyond the physical injuries that would heal with time, the emotional scars from the betrayal ran deep. Sports psychologists and trauma specialists brought in to assist with his recovery emphasized that rebuilding trust after such a profound violation would be a long process. Fatu's public appearances following the unmasking showed a changed man, someone who was more guarded and less willing to let people into his inner circle. The attack had fundamentally altered how he approached relationships within the wrestling industry. Roman Reigns continued to play a significant role in the aftermath, positioning himself as both protector and judge. His involvement signaled to everyone in WWE that attacks on family members, whether blood relations or extended family through the Anoa'i connection, would be met with severe retribution. The tribal chief used his platform to send messages to the locker room about respect, loyalty, and the consequences of crossing certain lines. His handling of the situation reinforced his position as not just a top star but as someone who wielded real power within the company structure. Nick Aldis faced criticism from some quarters about how long the investigation had taken and whether security measures in place were adequate to prevent the attack. He defended the thoroughness of the investigation, arguing that rushing to judgment would have resulted in the wrong person being blamed. The general manager also pointed out that the sophisticated nature of the cover-up had made the case particularly challenging. Moving forward, Aldis pledged reforms that would make WWE a safer environment for all performers while acknowledging that determined individuals could sometimes circumvent even the best security protocols. The wrestling community outside WWE also weighed in on the situation. Independent wrestlers, former WWE superstars, and industry veterans shared their perspectives on what the unmasking revealed about backstage culture in professional wrestling. Many noted that while WWE's incident was shocking in its specifics, underlying tensions and resentments are common in any competitive environment. The conversation expanded to include discussions about mental health support for wrestlers, conflict resolution mechanisms, and the pressure cooker environment that can lead to destructive decisions. As the story continued to develop, questions arose about when and how the attacker might return to WWE programming. Some argued that certain lines, once crossed, should result in permanent banishment. Others believed in redemption arcs and second chances, suggesting that after appropriate punishment and genuine contrition, a path back should be possible. WWE management remained tight-lipped about long-term plans, but the business reality of professional wrestling meant that few decisions were truly permanent. The attacker's in-ring talent and audience reaction would likely play roles in determining their future. The impact on Jacob Fatu's career trajectory became another important element of the story. Prior to the attack, he had been on an upward trajectory toward main event status and potential championship opportunities. The forced time away from action and the psychological aftermath of the assault threatened to derail that momentum. However, the sympathy generated by being the victim of such a heinous act also created a powerful narrative that WWE creative could leverage. Fatu's eventual return to action would be one of the most anticipated moments in recent memory, with huge potential for an emotional and triumphant comeback story. The unmasking also raised questions about what signs had been missed and whether the attack could have been prevented. WWE instituted reviews of their talent relations and wellness programs, looking for gaps that might allow similar situations to develop in the future. Mental health resources were expanded, and new channels were created for superstars to report concerns about colleagues who might be struggling. The incident became a catalyst for broader changes in how WWE approached the well-being of their performers, though critics argued these measures should have been in place long before tragedy struck. As we close this chapter of an incredible and shocking story, the reverberations continue to be felt throughout WWE. The unmasking of Jacob Fatu's attacker answered many questions but raised countless others about trust, loyalty, and the hidden tensions that simmer beneath the surface of professional wrestling. This revelation will undoubtedly influence storylines and relationships for months or even years to come, reshaping the landscape of WWE in ways we're only beginning to understand. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel so you don't miss any updates as this incredible story continues to unfold, because if this situation has taught us anything, it's that in WWE, the most shocking revelations can come when you least expect them.